Hello, my friends. It is so nice to have you here again for another chair yoga class. Today's class is going to be all about balance, and this is going to be a part of an in-person series that I'm starting on healthy aging, and in particular, this is all about stability and balance. And so we're going to explore in this practice the muscles that are involved in maintaining balance. We're also going to explore a little bit of the different planes of movement that we move on that will help to keep us nice and stabilized as well, being able to move across these different planes of movement. And finally, we're also going to connect to our foundation. Sometimes we think of our foundation as starting in our feet, but we're going to talk a little bit about where else we can connect to a foundation in our body that will keep us nice and strong. So this is just the beginning of several programs on balance, and I'm so excited that you're here with me. So grab a chair, and I will see you in there. My name is Lindsey, and it is my pleasure to be here with you to lead our stretch and unwind for today, our chair yoga program. And so the first and only thing you really require for this class is a sturdy chair. So if for whatever reason you are not already in a chair, I'll invite you to go ahead and find your most comfortable chair, preferably a sturdy chair, but not all of us are able to sit up in a harder back chair, and some of us are reclined today, or some of us might be just in another chair, another position for today, and that's all right. We're going to go ahead and just start to tune inward. So just start, as we do with every class, to connect to our breath and start to explore with a little bit of curiosity what might be going on inside of ourselves today. It always feels nice for me to kind of take that nice big sighing breath whenever we transition into a new program, a new space. So if you feel the same way, you can go ahead and take a nice sighing breath, big breath in through the nose, and then let out a little sigh or a big sigh. And if it feels good to do that, you can do that one more time, or you might just prefer a softer breath here, in through the nose, and either out through the mouth or out softly through the nose. And just settle in. If you feel ready to close your eyes, if it feels comfortable to do that, you're welcome to do that right off the bat. And if for now you just want to keep the eyes kind of softly open, I'll just invite you to see if you can bring a little bit of softness to the muscles around the eyes, almost as if they were resting in a hammock. So we can kind of bring that sensation in, that the eyes are relaxing or resting. And then I'm going to invite you here to wiggle your toes. So just wiggling our toes and connecting to our feet. Sometimes we don't even bring much attention to the feet. So let's think about, where are my feet? Can I feel my feet today? How do my feet feel today? We might rock a little bit forward and back along the soles of the feet, lifting the toes, spreading the toes, really moving in whatever way feels good through the feet for right now. And then we can go ahead and just let them rest here on the floor. Can we move our attention or our sense of awareness up the body now into our sit bones? So that's the bony part of our bottom, the part that might be making the most contact with the seat beneath us. And we can just give ourselves a little bit of a massage along the sit bones, along the pelvic floor, by tipping from side to side, a little bit of a lean from side to side, also starting to explore just this little plane of movement here. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about balance and the parts of our body that are involved in balance, just on a kind of a general level today. But this is one of those pieces of balance here. It's just exploring this plane that we move on from side to side. And part of balance is that if we are leaning to one side, that we want to be able to catch ourselves from falling and bring ourselves back upright. So go ahead and bring yourself back upright. And then maybe we start exploring here this front to back movement as we start to reach a little bit forward and back. And as we're doing this little movement front to back, can we think about the parts of the body connected to the floor? That's going to be our root, our sit bones and our feet. And we think about the part of our body that's moving in this counter weight or counter position. So that's going to be our rising sense. So coming up and out the crown of the head. Good. Maybe even up the spine, up and out through the heart. Take a little breath. And then exhale, settle yourself, bring yourself back to your center. Connect here to your center. Beautiful. And then let's go ahead and take a few soft breaths. If we want, we can bring our hands to the lower part of our ribs if that feels comfortable in the shoulders. It may be, around the waist a little bit further down. Sometimes there's a little bit less movement in the shoulders. And if hands on the body doesn't feel right today, you can just leave the hands on your lap with the palms facing up. We're going to connect to a sense of three-dimensional breath in the body. So we'll take a big breath in, and if your hands are on your body, start to notice this widening that happens of the ribs expanding from side to side. And then as we exhale, we feel the gathering of the ribs coming back to center. Good. We might also notice if we take a big breath in, I'm going to bring my hands to my knees just to show the folks that have their hands down, that as we inhale, we can open the palms a little wider and notice the front to back expansion of the ribs as we inhale. And as we exhale, we softly gather a little fist and softly gather the lungs and the ribs back at center. Good. Let's notice that one more time in the way that our breath and our body is moving up and down with that breath. So as we inhale, we notice the diaphragm moving down. Good. And as we exhale, we might notice the diaphragm moving back into its starting place, which is a little bit more gathered at center. Good. Take another breath or two, just like that. I know I gave a lot of instruction, so just take a couple moments, a couple cycles to notice this beautiful, radiant breath, this three-dimensional, almost like a star shape to our lungs, our breath. Good. And then we can bring ourselves back to center. We can release the hands back into that position with the backs of our hands resting on the knees. The palms are turned up. Good. Hands are nice and wide. And then let's all together take a breath in through the nose, spreading the fingers nice and wide, feeling a lovely stretch through the fingers. And then exhale, softening into just a soft fist. Good. Two more just like that. Inhale through the nose, spreading and stretching through the fingers. Exhale, soft fist. And then last one. And exhaling, soft fist. Beautiful. Let's take that fist, that soft fist we've created, and turn it towards the tops of the thighs. We're just going to start to gently tap along the tops of the legs. So these are some of the muscles that we want to consider, that we want to think about when it comes to balance. Of course, the leg muscles play a big important role in that. But as we're tapping on the tops of the legs, we might even start to reach down the legs gently to the outside of the calves, maybe coming to the inside of the calves. And notice with a little flex of the toes here, how the foot is actually connected into the muscles of the ankle and the lower part of the leg. So let's bring those toes down. Keep tapping here on the tops of the thighs. Good. Outside of the thighs. And then let's do that again. Let's lift the toes up, feeling a connection of the muscles connecting the foot, the ankle, and the lower leg. Those are so important for balance. Good. So we're moving along the outer edges of the thighs, waking things up there. And we'll move to the inner thighs gently. Beautiful. And then we're going to just bypass the core here briefly and bring the fingertips right over the chest and just find a little bit of tapping on the chest. I want you to perhaps start to think about here as we're tapping on the chest, how you feel inside when you wobble. What feelings come up when we lose our balance or feel wobbly on the ground. And then let's go ahead and place a hand over our heart, the second hand coming to rest on top of the first. And just pause here and bring in maybe a sense of compassion for yourself. Just to let yourself know that it's okay if we wobble. It's okay if we lose our balance. And right now in our practice today, we are practicing safely to improve our stability and our balance. Good. And then take a big breath in. And release the breath with the hands down to your lap. Good. Let's take our hands together, interlacing our fingers. And we're just going to start to lift the arms up until we feel that the belly is starting to become engaged, or if that the breath is starting to change. So if the breath starts to become short, that's the point, that's the message to our body that we want to stop right there. Good, and then lower the hands down. Now, one other important piece to balance is our engagement of the core. And this core is also going to help us lift our arms up a little bit higher too. So let's think about our core not only as our abdominal muscles, but as this whole sort of corset mechanism around the whole torso of the body. And let's go ahead and take a breath that sounds like a shh. And when you do that, do you notice a little bit of a tucking, a little bit of a drawing back of the belly button, moving towards the spine? Try that again. Breath in through the nose. And then a shh. Good. So we get a little bit of belly engagement of that corset area of the body. Now with that little engagement, let's interlace the fingers again, rooting down through the feet, rooting down through the belly and the sit bones. The pelvis is nice and heavy. Let's try to lift the arms up again. So just notice if your range of motion changes at all. So that's going to be that little indicator of how does the breath feel when I move my arms up. Good. And then lower down. Can we do that one more time? This time following with the gaze. So connect to that little bit of core activation. Shh. Looking up with our gaze, with our eyes at our hands, and noticing if the arms were able to comfortably lift any higher. Maybe yes, maybe no. Okay, this is all information for us to gather. Let's release the hands. Release the belly, because even though we're just doing a little movement in the belly, it's still a lot of effort sometimes. Let's roll out the shoulders, my friends. Beautiful work. Big roll of the shoulders. Good. Connecting here into the sense of the shoulders. How are the shoulders feeling today? And then let's bring the hands here to the knees. Just with the hands on the knees, we're going to find a little bit of a twist, a soft twist, drawing one hand back towards the hip, the other hand moving forward over the knee. and then we switch to the other side. So it's a little bit of a twist. We might extend gently through that front hand. Good. And then we might extend through the other hand. Now, how's the breath as we move on this plane of movement? So twisting is another important plane of movement that we do in our everyday life. We have to reach beside us to grab something off the table beside us. Good. Or if we're putting sheets away in the closet, sometimes we may have to get into a deep corner. Beautiful. Take one big breath in. Exhale fully. Then let's bring ourselves back to center with our hands resting on our knees. Take another shoulder roll here to reset the spine. Find a little neutral spine. And by neutral spine, we want to think about the hips and the pelvis being nice and heavy. And we feel nice and tall along the spine, up and out the crown of the head. Beautiful work, everyone. Hands resting on our knees. We'll move through a little bit of a warm up through the spine. So we draw the shoulders back so we feel nice and open across the chest. We might lift the chin. Good. And then we can bring the shoulders forward, rounding across the back, nice and open across the shoulder blades, across the spine. Good. Let's keep moving here with the breath now. So we inhale to press that heart forward, maybe opening up through the throat, through the chin, and then exhale, rounding. Good. If you notice any kind of pinching in the hip or the back as we move here, just go a little bit less. So we don't need to do quite we don't want to have such tension in this movement. So we can just soften the tension a little bit, especially when it comes to the nerves. The nerves don't like a lot of tension. Good. Let's do one more breath. Inhale and exhale. Beautifully done. Come on back up to your seated position. Shoulders rolling a couple of times. Beautifully done. And so we'll move a little bit into the low body now, into the hips. So if you are able to move forward in the chair that you're in, you might find that to be a bit more comfortable, give you a little bit more space through the hips. And if not, that's perfectly fine. Wherever you are today also is perfect. So we can think about just generally having the ankles beneath the knees and having the feet roughly hip distance apart. And that is another important element in considering how we're creating structure in our body for balance. So we're thinking about having a nice even foundation to give us a little bit more structure, a little bit more foundation. Now we're just going to start to open and close the knees a couple of times. So we're starting to warm up through the hip joint a little bit. Beautiful work. And then you can bring your knees back to center, your feet on the floor, and we'll just focus on just the right knee for a moment. So I always like to shuffle a little bit farther forward in my chair because it kind of sinks a little bit in the middle, and that can make this an even harder movement for us in the hip flexors. So do whatever you need to do to find a little bit more comfort, and then maybe just come up onto the toe of the right foot. Good. And then lower down. Now I know it's not easy for all of us to reach behind that knee. So even if you're reaching behind the thigh, that works. Or even if you're just sort of holding on to the clothing of your pants, that's fine too. But we're going to go ahead and lift that knee up and down a few times here, just to get into that sensation of the hips. Now, you'll notice even in myself just now, I kind of want to roll back as I do that. And we want to think about lifting the spine a little bit higher. And we might not come up quite as high when we do that, but rather than rocking back, let's try to keep that pelvis a little bit more level. Good. And not moving. Good. Lift that knee up and lower. And then can we take a step out to the side? If you have an arm on your chair, you might not be able to go quite as far, and that's fine. If there's any tension in the hip as we do this. And the hip flexor is doing a lot of work here where the leg connects to the core. What we want to think about is that shh breath, and think about rooting from the core to help support tension in the rest of the body. So the core can do a lot of the heavy lifting for us when we're putting weight into the joints. So let's find again that shh breath, a little bit of core connection as we step out and step back in. And then can we hold back on under the knee again and maybe find a few circles? How does that feel? We might want to reach the foot out in front of us, change the direction. A couple of times, maybe go in both directions. Beautiful. And then drop that foot to the floor. And we're just going to let it open out to the side. Let the knee open out to the side because we've done a lot of strengthening through that hip. And now we're just going to release a little bit. So we might just have the foot on the floor. We might cross the ankles over, whichever one feels more stable in the body. I'm just going to have my foot on the floor and drop that knee out. Good. And then let's pause here for a moment. So just take a breath in and notice the right side of the body. Good. Take a few of those radiant breaths perhaps. So think about again the expansiveness of the breath, side to side, front to back, and top to bottom. And then exhaling, almost as if the corset of your body is sort of expanding and then gathering as well. It's kind of like as if it were a light that glows brighter and then a little dimmer. And then we can bring that foot flat to the floor and then just rest for a moment. Check in with yourself here. So tune in to the differences you might notice now from the right side to the left side. Do you notice any differences in temperature of the two legs? Perhaps you might notice almost like a plumping sensation in the leg that we just worked as we're hydrating the fascia. Good, all of those connective tissues. Nicely done, everyone. We're going to move to the second side now. So we'll bring our hand beneath the left knee and just find a little lifting and lowering of the left heel. So lifting and lowering. And then as always, if you are only using one side of the body, you know your body best. And I know many of you are able to help that side move manually, and that works beautifully. If one side's just not working the way you're wanting it to today, we can always visualize that side moving as well. Power of the mind is pretty strong. Good. So lifting and lowering. And then when you're ready, we can hold on to behind the knee, behind the thigh, somewhere on the pants, and then start to lift and lower that foot. Good. Trying not to lean back as we do so. Trying to bring the chest forward and lifting, almost like a little string is drawing us up from the heart towards the ceiling. Good, and then let's create those little circles in the leg, moving out and in, and you can straighten the leg a little bit if that feels good or not. Change the direction. Beautiful. And then bringing that foot back to the floor, we're going to find our way stepping out to the side and back. Good. So if you feel like a lot of strain, a lot of tension in the hip, see about connecting to that core through your breath, or maybe even a little image of the corset wrapping around the torso, or maybe a little bit of an image of belly button moving towards spine. Good, and then let's bring that foot back to meet the other foot, and we can just let the knee fall out to the side. Give it a little bit of a rest because you have worked so very hard through the hip. Good, we were also moving into the outer muscles of the leg, the abductor muscles. Good. Also super important for our stability. Big breath in and out. And then bring that foot back to the floor. Comfortably sit for a moment here and just check in once again with yourself. Notice how the body feels. Notice how the two sides of the body feel. Beautiful. And also maybe check in with yourself. What are my thoughts doing? How am I speaking to myself throughout these strengthening poses? And can I bring in a little bit of compassion for myself perhaps too? Good, for wherever I am today. Thankful for this body that I am in. Beautiful work, my friends. So we're going to bring in a little bit of us not going to stand, but we're going to connect to the sensation of standing for a moment, lifting ourselves up and out of our chairs. So I won't ask you to stand at home, but we're going to just wiggle the toes again here a little bit and start to connect to the feet a little bit. So lift the toes, spread the toes, take a big breath in, and then let the toes settle down on the floor, pressing into the big toe as much as we can. And do we notice that when we press into the big toe, we might start to feel a connection of the inner arches of the feet? We also might even feel a little bit of a connection to the adductor muscles, the inner thigh muscles when we do that. So just release the muscles, release the toe, press, and then we'll do that one more time, pressing in through the big toe, feeling those muscles engage all the way up into the pelvic floor even. Take a big breath in here. And then exhale, releasing. And then let's bring our hands to our knees if they're not already there. And we're just going to lean forward, pressing a little bit into the heels as we do so. So pressing into the heels, we might even lift the toes slightly and really start to notice that as we press into the heels, do we notice a little bit of a lift or a little bit of a lighter feeling beneath the sit bones? Good. And then let's come back. If the knees don't love that, we might bring the feet a little bit further forward or a little bit further back. You can explore with what feels good for you there. A little further back might be a little bit more stable. So once again, leaning forward, thinking about reaching through the crown of the head and rooting through the sit bones, rooting through the heels. Feel that momentum of energy as we press through the heels and feel a little bit of lightness under the sit bones, a little bit of space, and then release. Nicely done. We're going to do that one more time. Coming forward, big breath in, big reach through the crown of the head and a rooting through the heels and even through the sit bones, reaching back. Good. Do we feel as if we could stand from this position? If we just find a little bit of that power. We're not going to stand, but after we're finished today, maybe you practice that on your own a little bit. Sitting to stand. Good. So you see how we need a lot of strength around the muscles around the knees as well to be able to stand comfortably. But well done, everyone. That's the beginning of that. So just give the knees a little bit of a sway. We might even reach the right foot out and start to just windshield wiper the toes gently. It always feels good in my knees to do that. If the knees are complaining a little bit, we might even just bring our tapping fingers over the knees gently. Just to feel a little bit of tapping here, kind of brings a little bit of softness to any tension or adhesions that we might have in that right knee. And then let's bring the left leg out a little bit longer, and same thing on the left knee. We might just tap gently over the left knee, tapping out any sensitivities or soreness in the knees. Good. Even a little bit of massage here can feel quite nice. Beautifully done, everyone. Take a big breath in, interlace the fingers and reach those fingers up, drawing into the core. And then we can release the arms out to our side. Beautiful. And can we find a little bit of width here through the feet? So stepping the feet apart slightly. Good. Take a moment to find a comfortable position for yourself with your toes pointing out towards the corners. Good. The knees and the toes are kind of pointing in the same direction here. Beautiful. Now the feet can stay just like this, or if you'd like, you might reach the right foot out a little bit further, turning the toes in, a little internal rotation of that right hip, that right knee, and the right toe. Good. And then from here, we're going to come into a warrior two with our arms. So 2 options here. Because we're moving the arms away from the body, there's a lot more happening in the shoulders. So we want to connect to the core. And if the shoulders still don't love that, we can shorten the lever at any time by bending the elbows and bringing them closer to the body. Good. Now can we turn the body, the torso, slightly towards the left knee? So we are almost in a little bit of a twist in this way. Good. And then the arms can come out to wherever they feel most comfortable. We're going to wiggle the fingers here, connecting to the belly, connecting to that corset space. And then the back hand is going to wrap around to meet the front arm. And we're going to pull back like we're pulling back on a bow and arrow. Good. Beautiful. So we're moving through multiple planes of movement here in our little bit of a twist. Good. And then we're opening the arms out to the side. Good. Moving in opposite directions, turning, twisting, pulling back on your bow. Let's do that 2 more times. Add in some breath if it feels good. We can inhale here. Exhale to pull back. Last one. Inhale, reaching around to the left hand, pulling back. And then this time, we're going to lift those bows and arrows up towards the ceiling. So root down through the sit bones as we lift the arms, really heavy through the pelvis. Then we can let the right arm go and rest on that back leg, the right leg, flipping the front palm to face us. Good. From here, we might stay right here, or we might lift a little bit more through the elbow, creating a rooting down through the left hip and that rising up through the left elbow. So we have our rooting down here and our rising up here. So we find lots of space in the left lung, in the left side of our rib cage. Please take a big full breath in and feel the breath entering the left lung, filling up with air. Good. Exhale. You might even bend the elbow without coming out of the pose. We'll just do a little dynamic movement here. Inhale, we lift, we rise up, filling up the left lung with air. Exhale, feeling that little compression, that emptying as we bring the elbow back down. 1 more time, elbow lifting. Exhaling, bringing the elbow back down. Good. And then bring the hands down to the legs. Turn yourself back to center. Bring that back leg in if it was out. We can just bring both feet together for a moment as we start to move a little bit, twist ourselves from left to right. We can find that little gentle twisting motion again here of the hands sliding forward to one knee and back towards the hip, and then changing sides. Let's pause for a moment, pause in between and check in with ourselves, asking yourself, how do you feel? What do you notice? No wrong answers. So we ask ourselves for answers, and sometimes we don't like that answer. So part of our yoga practice is also getting to know ourselves, recognizing that who we are is already perfectly whole. And we all have light and shadow sides, light and shadow thoughts. And so we're going to just bring a little bit of compassion in for ourselves anytime we ask ourselves, how do I feel right now? Good. And then we'll switch to the second side, my friends. And so we can bring those feet apart again. The knees and the toes are lining up generally in the same direction, pointing out towards the corners, but more or less depending on how much space you've got. If you enjoyed that extension of the one leg, you can do the same thing on the left side. Extend that left leg a little bit longer, and then maybe perhaps a little internal rotation. So turning the toes in, turning the hip in. I even like to sort of shift to my right hip a little bit more, especially on this side. Good. Take a moment to build your foundation, to connect to your foundation here. Good. Let's think about our foot connection as well too in this pose. So think about pressing into the big toe of the right foot and all the way to the outer edge of the back of that front heel. So it's a bit of an X connection across the right foot. Same thing on the left side. And then go ahead and find your core, little core connection before reaching the arms out to the distance that feels good. Take a breath in here and exhale. Settle the shoulders, turn towards the right fingertips. Give them a little wiggle. Keeping your gaze on your right fingers for a moment, we'll take that back hand and reach it around to meet the right hand to the front hand before pulling back on our bow. Beautiful. Let's do that again a few more times. You can go ahead and add the breath, noticing the little twist in the spine. Exhale to pull back. Exhale. Good. Connect to that core connection if you've lost it at all, to the breath connection. We'll do one more here together. Big breath in. This time we pull back on our bow, and then we're going to start to lift our bow and arrow up towards the ceiling. Good. Reaching with the right arm. Left hand can float down, resting on the left thigh, turning the right palm to face us. And then rooting through the right hip, we lift through the right elbow, right fingertips, creating space. And breathe into this space. Good. We can add a little dynamic movement here. As we inhale, we find that reach, that rise. As we exhale, we can bring the elbow down, feeling that little compression here, that little bit of that releasing of the pressure of the lungs. Good. Inhale, feeling the lungs expanding, receiving air. Exhaling, release. Last one. Beautiful work releasing the hands. We'll bring ourselves back to center, drawing that foot back to just back under our knee. And then let's readjust. What does your body need? So you can ask yourself that. What does my body need right now? Does it need movement? Do we want to find a little bit of windshield wipering of the knees, bringing them a little wide, and then windshield wipering the knees side to side? Or does my body want stillness after all of that strengthening? So ask yourself what your body needs. And wherever you chose to go, let's all meet in stillness now. Feet returning to the earth beneath you. Sit bones resting on the support of your chair. Feeling the rooting energy through the feet, rooting through the sit bones, and the lift or the rise up energy along the spine, out the crown of your head. And then just notice this, connect into this rise and fall here of energy. Good. Inhaling, noticing the energy lifting you up from the earth, moving all the way up and out the crown of the head. And then exhale, feeling that energy moving down the spine, down through the body, back into the earth. Good. Inhaling, prana vayu. That's our life force, our vitality. Exhaling, apana vayu, the downward flow of energy, grounding energy. Just take a breath or two more here. And then just as one final short pose before we rest, is we'll just bring ourselves into a bit of a forward fold, a seated forward fold. So we can be forward or back in our chairs, feet coming forward, resting on the heels, toes can be up or just sort of soft. And then we'll connect to a nice length in the spine. So this might already feel like quite enough in the backs of the legs. But if you'd like to explore a little bit more, you could start to walk your hands forward and just starting to notice the hinge of your hips as you come forward with a nice tall length to your spine. So we're still reaching out the crown of the head as we come forward. And then wherever you are from here, if you want to find a little bit of roundness in the spine, you could start to gently tuck the chin in. Good. Rounding through the back body. Feeling that release in the legs, the hips. Just let them be very heavy, almost like a widening across the sit bones and the front of the pelvis. Breath is long on the exhale. And then we'll just slowly come out of our forward fold, lifting ourselves back upright before moving all the way back into our Shavasana, our final relaxation. So just allow yourself to settle all the way in. And then before we completely rest and move into that dreamlike state, let's see if we can just take a few moments to reconnect to the physical sensations of the body relaxing. So just a short body scan here to feel the heaviness through the feet and feel the relaxed quality of the muscles of the legs, of the knees, tops of the legs and the hips. We can let the belly feel nice and soft now. And just notice the gentle rise and fall of the belly and the chest along with your breath. You might even notice the breath in the back body. You might notice the way that the back of the ribs also gently find that little bit of movement as we expand on the inhale and release on the exhale. Letting the neck, the head feel heavy. We might even enjoy just a few circles here of the head, and just encouraging the neck to relax, changing the direction of your circles if you are moving through neck circles. And the eyes may already be closed, and if they are not, no problem at all. We're just going to invite again that sensation of relaxing around the muscles of the eyes. So we can imagine the eyes resting heavily in the skull, in the head, in the socket of the eye, like little hammocks holding our eyes. Bringing your awareness to your breath, we can start to notice just the quality of our breath. And perhaps checking in with any noticeable changes of the breath at this point of our practice as compared to the beginning. Has the breath changed at all? How does it feel to take a breath now? And then I'm going to invite you to see if you can bring your awareness only to the left side of the body. Drawing the breath up the left side into the left lung, in through the left nostril, and then exhaling out the left nostril. Connecting again to the left side, inhaling through the left nostril. Good. Breath might be moving in an upward motion or maybe a downward motion. So just notice that how the direction of the breath is for you. In the left side, filling up left lung, left rib, left nostril. And then releasing that attention to the left side. See if we can sense into both sides equally. Once again, finding center, finding balance. And then I'll invite you to move your attention, your awareness to the right side of the body. Drawing breath in through the right nostril, right lung, right ribs. Good. Moving down the right side of the body, perhaps all the way down to your toes. Perhaps filling you up on the right side, through your arm, through the side of your head. Right side breath. Awareness of the right nostril, drawing breath in and out. And then let's bring our attention back to the left side, drawing breath in through the left. Move your attention over the bridge of the nose and exhale out the right side. Drawing breath in through the right side of the body, over the bridge of the nose and out the left side. Good. Inhaling through the left, over the bridge of the nose, out the right. Continuing to draw breath in one side and out the other. Feeling into the balance of the energies of the body. Anytime you feel ready to let that breath go, just return to your natural rhythm. Starting now to bring our awareness back into our breath. Maybe lengthening the breath slightly. And you start to invite movement back in, gently at first, wiggling fingers and toes, and then gradually growing into our arms. We might like to take a little gentle stretch here, or we might prefer just to pause for another moment. And then bring yourself, when you are ready, back to your seated position. You can keep the eyes nice and heavy if you like. And we'll bring our hands together at our heart. And from here, go ahead, please, and rub your palms together, connecting to that warmth energy, that physical body energy. And then if you would like to place your hands over your eyes, we will pause here to say thank you. Thank you to our earth. Thank you to our communities. Thank you to our ancestors. And thank you to ourselves. Thank you so much for being here with me, bringing our hands back together at our hearts. We bow now to each other. Thank you for sharing your breath, your energy, your time. The light in me honors the light in each of you. Om Shanti. Peace be with you. And until we meet again, I wish you wonderful days. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.